Sarah goes to her communications professor, and she is in a total panic, which reminds me to tell you that one of the things that wasn't on Dr. Rogers' slide was my great humility when the hopelessness or despair has a level of agitation in it, because my clinical experience and that of many of the researchers in depression is that when you get that despair or hopelessness coupled by a feeling of agitation, it always makes my radar antenna go up a little bit more. Nevertheless, she goes to her esteemed communication professor. She is panicked about an assignment that's due prior to her spring break. She has a rough draft, but does not have any ideas about how she's going to complete the assignment. Her professor, the esteemed Professor Ritchie, who has worked at the University of Norfolk for more than 20 years, reviews what she has written in her draft, and he gets a little concerned about her. Here's the part of the paper that Professor Ritchie read that concerns him, and I'm quoting from Sarah. "Ever since I was 12, I had thoughts about death. At times, I fantasize about what it would be like to die. I have occasionally thought about taking my dad's gun and using it, but that seems so messy. Once I started driving, I thought it might be easier just to drive off the road or hit a tree. But I've never done anything like that because I don't want to hurt my parents and my friends. But lately, these feelings are growing stronger, and I'm beginning to wonder more and more about what it's like to die." Now, Dr. Ritchie, should you contact someone on campus to share your concerns?
Yes, because I'm concerned.
Okay, and what are you concerned about?
Well, the student.
The student. Who are you going to
The
contact?
student has indicated she might commit suicide, and people don't joke about that.
So here you are, this esteemed professor in the College of Liberal Arts and Communications, and suddenly you got this alarming and sometimes, I guess, confusing clinical presentation. It's quite a challenge, can't it be?
Not really, if you know who to call on campus.
That's the next thing. Who should you call?
This happened to me once. I had a student come to class early. She and her boyfriend were in class, and she said he'd been talking about suicide all weekend, and she was afraid he might do it. So I called Diane Fashionpower, who some of you know, is a psychiatric nurse on our campus, and she said, bring him over. And when he got to class, I said, you and I are going on a field trip, and I took him to her office. And of course, she never could tell me what happened after that because of the privacy issues, but I did see him graduate, so things worked out. Now, I have sent people over to your counseling area, and I've been there, and I talk about it in my classes, and I make it an issue that if you've got an issue, you go get help. And if you can't remember who to go see, come and see me, and I will remind you. I'll take you to see them myself.
What do you think we should do, Professor, if she says, I ain't going?
I think I'm persuasive enough and charming enough I could get her to go. But, you know, you really can't do anything. I would call, and I would probably alert campus police, and I would alert the director of my school and perhaps my dean.
Very good response. The point of all this is there comes a time in this juncture, ultimately you can't make a student do anything. And people get into trouble when they think they can. And that's partly because we want to help people, we feel for these people. It's partly because of our grandiosity also as well. Wrong. So it often happens that the student says, I don't mind talking to you, but that's where it stops. So it's a very interesting dilemma. So Sarah is actually more agreeable, and she agrees to make an appointment with the counseling center and begins to see a
I don't agree that she makes an appointment. We do it right now. We don't want to wait.
Professor Ritchie also knows that when you make referral, like any physician to any other physician, that less than 80% actually keep the appointment. He didn't say that, but I know he was thinking it. So
sure
he's
I was.
absolutely right that he would walk the student over because it raises the possibility of the successful referral. It's an important point he just made. So he walks her over and introduces her to the counseling center, and she then thereafter begins to attend weekly sessions. At her most recent visit, she reports escalating suicidal thoughts over the previous 7 days. The counselor recommends that Sarah tell her parents about the situation, but she says they won't understand. So, the counselor, how would a decision be made about Sarah's preoccupation with death and dying would require immediate intervention first?
The counselor would continue to work with Sarah to get as much information as possible, to develop rapport with Sarah, to look at her mental status, to see whether her mental status and behavior is deteriorating, if her functioning is deteriorating, how she's doing in classes, etc. Continue to ask her about concerns regarding the death and dying ideation, if she is increasing in terms of talking about those kind of concerns, if it's decreasing, if she has specific plans in terms of actually hurting herself or killing herself, and looking at some of those risk factors that were discussed earlier.
What do you mean about mental status? And number two, so what if she has a plan? I didn't understand the clinical significance of that.
If she's able to take care of herself, if she's taking care of herself in terms of basic functioning and the way she presents, are her thoughts organized and logical, etc. She's taking care of herself in terms of cleanliness, eating, sleeping, etc.
So why do I need to know if she has a plan or not?
Because we're going to be even more concerned about making some kind of additional interventions if she has something specific to say in terms of a plan. The more specific she is about a plan to kill herself, the more likely we are to have to do some additional types of intervention.
Okay. Was there anything, audience, that would make you a little bit concerned about the potential for a plan? Yes, sir. You bet it. Correct. You know what the problems with guns are? They tend to be lethal. Mm-hmm. And, and a lot of students, and it's an unfortunate experience. You're right on both accounts. Access to firearms really gets me anxious because most people that do it actually do it. And the same with driving the car off the road as well. So there was some issues in the plan that as a clinician I would be alerted to. And I would want to know, I would actually pursue it like you would. I would want to know, where are these guns? Are they locked? And a whole host of other things about it. I'd like to know have you ever tried to run the car off the road before, or is it just a thought you've had?